Jeff, do you hear that?
Yeah, it sounds kind of like a piano playing somewhere.
But how can that be? We're on a tiny island off the coast of Maine that's home to the Seguin Island Light. There shouldn't be any people out here.
Well, no living people anyway.
Okay, that's just creepy.
Well, maybe the countless rumors and stories are true. The Seguin Island Light is haunted. Hey, I'm Jeff Belanger.
And I'm Ray Auger, and welcome to episode 79 of the New England Legends podcast. If you give us about 10 minutes, we'll give you something strange to talk about today.
We are on a mission to chronicle every legend in New England, 1 week and one story at a time. And we also hit a pretty cool milestone recently.
Ooh, what's that?
We've had over 1 million downloads of our show.
Wow!
So thank you to all of you legendary listeners. You each helped us get here. And if you don't already subscribe to our podcast, please do, because it's free. You can find us on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, iHeartRadio, or wherever you get your podcasts. And we really appreciate it when you tell others about our show.
Please do. Man, it's been a wild ride so far, huh?
Yeah, for sure.
All right, Jeff. Seguin Island Light, it's haunted?
Just to set this up, Seguin Island is about 2.5 miles off the coast of Maine, near the mouth of the Kennebec River. It's pretty close to Popham Beach State Park. The Seguin Island ferry service can get you out here if you want to check this place out for yourself.
Now, the island is 64 acres in size.
Yep.
It's situated high above the water, which makes it the perfect place for a lighthouse. Mm-hmm. In fact, if you add the height of the land plus the lighthouse tower, it's 186 feet above sea level, which makes this the highest lighthouse in Maine. But it's haunted?
Well, to find out why it's haunted, we'll have to go back. It's August of 1607, and George Popham and Raleigh Gilbert set their anchor on this island before heading up the Kennebec River to settle in what would be called Popham Colony.
As the population of the region grows during the next century and a half, the ocean traffic grows with it.
Makes sense.
Right. There's more ships coming and going, and as we've seen in the past, these waters can get rough.
Right.
So locals petitioned the General Court of Massachusetts.
Because this area was still considered Massachusetts colony back then.
Exactly. So locals ask for a lighthouse. In 1795, President George Washington commissions the construction.
$1 bill, George Washington?
That's right. Mr. President, dollar bill and the quarter.
Right.
George Washington approves this lighthouse.
So the station's first lighthouse keeper is Major John Polareski, who finds island life difficult on his meager salary of $300 per year. So he petitions Congress for additional money and is awarded an extra $150 to clear the island of trees and brush so he can do something with the land. But that's just not enough for the major. There's only so much one can do out here on an island all alone.
We've explored haunted lighthouses before, Jeff.
We have.
Like Matinicus Rock in Penobscot Bay, Maine.
Yep.
What strikes me about these places is just how lonely life must be for these early keepers.
Yeah.
I mean, you have one job. Keep the light lit at night and during storms. That's it, just one job.
Right.
It's a really important job. Lives are at stake, but still, once it's lit, there's not much more you can do.
Yeah, the rest of the time you just polish the brass, paint the wood, keep
Right.
things clean, and try not to lose your mind from boredom. Because monotony can wear us down, can it?
That it can. Major Polareski serves here for 6 years before moving on with his life. But 6 years is a long time.
Yeah, it is.
Enough to leave an impression and form maybe even an eternal connection.
Despite the best efforts of the lighthouse and its keepers, over the years, Seguin Island has been home to multiple shipwrecks and deaths. These are indeed treacherous waters. And if you believe the November 1887 newspaper reports, these waters have also been home to a man-killing monster.
The Providencetown whaling steamer Lizzie N. a few days ago went off Seguin Island, sighted a large finback whale. A boat was lowered, equipped with the usual paraphernalia for whale killing. Captain West was in the stern and the chief mate in the bow of the boat. The whale, contrary to the usual custom of such fish, showed no fear of the boat, but lay on top of the water, apparently inviting the attack. As soon as near enough, the captain fired a bomb lance at the monster, but his aim was affected by the rough sea and he failed to hit a vital part. The whale, angered by the shot, attacked the boat, knocking it 30 feet in the air with his flukes and cutting the body of one seaman completely in two. He seemed to grow frantic with the rage and bit and tossed fragments of the boat in all directions. 2 other seamen were struck by his flukes and killed. The captain, mate, and 1 sailor clung to the oars and were eventually picked up by the steamer.
The article goes on to describe how back on the Lizzie N, Captain West was able to ram 2 more bomb lances into the whale and kill it. The whale was said to be over 60 feet in length and weighed an estimated 70 tons. This story captured national attention.
So we have deaths all around the island.
Yep.
High seas, shipwrecks, monsters of the deep, maddening solitude.
Yeah.
But if we fast forward to the mid-1800s, we can add murder most foul.
Well, what happened?
This part of the story is mostly legend, but it's a good one, Jeff. Listen
Okay.
up. It's a tale of a newly married caretaker who arrives on Seguin Island with his young wife. The bride wasn't used to the isolation of island life. Her husband tends to the lighthouse duties while she sits alone in the living quarters. Boredom soon leads to depression. Depression leads to a lot of complaining and arguing between the couple.
So this lighthouse keeper comes up with a plan. He goes through a great deal of expense and trouble to make it happen, too. He purchases a piano from the mainland and has it sailed out to the island just before winter sets in.
Now, as you can imagine, getting a piano off the boat and up the rocky ledge of the island isn't easy.
Yeah, I can imagine.
They pull, they push, they tie ropes around the heavy instrument and lug it on shore until finally they heave the piano to ground where they can drag it to the living quarters. Once inside, the lighthouse keeper presents his wife with this extravagant gift.
And she's giddy at the sight of the piano. She claps her hands, she beams broadly, but tells her husband she can't play without sheet music.
Well, this isn't a problem. The piano came with a piece of sheet music.
So the happy bride grabs the sheet music and starts playing the song.
And once she's done, she plays it again.
And the lighthouse keeper returns to his duties, pleased that his wife now has something to occupy her. Lighthouse life goes on as winter settles in.
Jeff, do you have a favorite song?
Well, sure, but, it changes all the time depending on which day you ask me.
I'm the same way. I love so many great songs, it's tough to pick one.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. But where are you going with this, Ray?
Well, imagine having only one song to listen to over and over and over and over.
Oh, man. That could become torture.
Here at the Seguin Island Lighthouse, that same song is playing over and over. They're unable to get any new sheet music until the spring, and this young bride doesn't fancy herself a composer.
Okay.
She only plays the same song over and over and over.
And pretty soon, the happy music seems to taunt the lighthouse keeper. It gnaws at him like a hungry monster. Maybe it's the isolation, maybe it's the monotony of his daily life combined with the monotony of the music, but soon, he snaps.
The lighthouse keeper grabs an axe and makes his way to the piano. He can take no more of the same song. And when his wife runs in to protest, he turns the axe on her. Looking at the ruin at his feet, his dead wife, the destroyed piano, he sees no option but to take his own life as well.
And that brings us back to today. So today, there's talk of ghosts in and around the lighthouse. One man, they call the captain, has been reported climbing the steps up to the light tower, still tending to his monotonous but critical duties all these years later.
But he's not the only ghost here.
Okay.
Visitors to the island sometimes report hearing the faint sounds of a piano hovering in the air.
On foggy nights, imagine this, folks along the mouth of the Kennebec River also claim to hear that piano music drifting in from the island, which brings them right back to the legend of Seguin Lighthouse.
But did this heinous piano-side, homicide, and suicide really happen?
So I did some digging through books, through newspaper archives, through the internet.
And what did you find?
Nothing.
Oh.
Yet this story is repeated on many websites referring to haunted places, which makes me ask how this piano story was attached to Seguin Light.
Well, according to an Associated Press article from November of 1997, Nick and Stacy Bottitelli of Denver decided to shake up their lives by serving 4 months as lighthouse keepers on Seguin Light. The article mentions how they heard about the ghostly legend of the lighthouse keeper who went mad and chopped up the piano and his wife.
So we know the story existed in 1997,
Right.
which really isn't that far back
No.
considering, and the summer keepers heard it on the island. But still, from there, I haven't found an earlier written record.
And murder-suicides almost always make the news.
They do.
Also, this isn't the first legend we've chased involving ghostly piano music.
Oh, that's right.
Way back in episode 15, we explored the phantom piano music around Gardner Lake in Connecticut.
That's right, the piano that sunk to the bottom along with the house. I do remember that.
So I wonder if maybe there was a piano here at Seguin Light at one time, and that this place is haunted by a person who was happiest here when they were playing the piano.
Okay.
But the whole axe murder and suicide are the made-up parts of the story.
Well, I think that's possible. And of course, axe murders and suicides do happen, but
Right.
maybe it didn't happen here. And we often invent backstory when none other is provided. So if you take away the murder-suicide, well, this story becomes a lot more difficult to research. But it also becomes a lot more plausible.
So what do we do now?
I guess we listen for the music.
We'd like to thank our Patreon patrons for sponsoring this episode. If you'd like to help us and be even a bigger part of this movement, head on over to patreon.com/New England Legends, and for as little as $3 a month, you can get early access to new episodes and bonus material no one else gets to hear.
You can also reach out to us on our Legend line at 617-444-9683. And we got a call this week from New Hampshire.
My name is Martha Robertson. I grew up in Nashua, New Hampshire. There was a rock in a creek that's now covered over. It was called Hassel Brook. If you listened to the creek, you could hear like a sound. And one of my friends said that there was a family that was murdered there by Indians. We kids would play on it. It turns out later there is a plaque, and it is called Hassel Brook. It was a family that lived in Nashua, New Hampshire, and they were indeed murdered by Native Americans. And why they were murdered, I'm not sure, except they were white and probably encroaching on their territory. It wasn't anything that I experienced, except that one time I could hear kind of an echo in the brook further up. That's all covered over. It's all suburban now. It's all gone. But in my memory, which was in the early to late 50s, there was that rock where we kids would play.
Thanks for sharing that story, Martha. If you didn't speak up, that's a legend that may have been lost forever. You also can call or text us anytime at 617-444-9683.
We'd like to thank John Wilbur for lending his voice acting talents this week, and our theme music is by John Judd.
Until next time, remember, the bizarre is closer than you think.